You know, you've probably never heard of this game, and that's a real shame. Today we're talking about ChoroQ Adventure, developed by eGame and published by Takara. Releasing in Japan on the 10th of January 2002, North America on October 26th, 2002, Europe in May 2003 and Australia in June 2003, ChoroQ Adventure certainly cast its net far and wide. Sadly, fame and fortune were not to be for this game, and fast forwarding 20 years or so, it seems to have been all but forgotten. Of course, you may think that it just looks like a somewhat cutesy arcade racing game, and that's where you're wrong. I have fiendishly misled you with my devious choice of footage, hand-picked to cunningly give the illusion of a simple racer. But here's the thing. ChoroQ Adventure is a full-fledged Japanese role-playing game. It's Dragon Quest on wheels, if you will. Over the course of this review, I'll be going into exactly how this game rides the line between simple racer and JRPG. Of course, if you don't have the time or desire to sit there and listen to me warble on about a game that is tantalizingly close to one of my all-time favourites, then you can mosey on down to the chapter selection in the video description and go straight to the bottom line for my final thoughts. For the rest of you lovely lot, sit back, relax, and perhaps consider a brew from the first of this video's definitely legit sponsors.
Hello there. Here at our coffee shop, we decided one thing. Why top up with petrol when you can have caffeine? We slipped several of the local race cars a few doses of our newest industrial strength blend, and wow! Look at them go! Coffee, the superior kind of fuel.
The premise of ChoroQ Adventure happens at lightning speed upon first loading up the main campaign. Basically right, it takes place in a world populated exclusively by sentient vehicles. No, stay with me. And please remember that this game does actually predate the excellent Pixar movie with the similar setting. The leader of this strange world, President Forrest, has had enough of being in charge and decides to trigger a constitutional crisis. He demands to step down, not by calling an election, but by challenging the next winner of the World Grand Prix. Should his challenger emerge victorious in this duel, then they become the next president. This is how democracy dies, to the thunderous roar of two engines. This is also where you come in. The actual story of ChoroQ Adventure is very simple. Via undertaking a series of races across multiple diverse locations, you must qualify yourself and two teammates for the World Grand Prix. Upon qualifying and entering the World Grand Prix, you must actually have to win the thing. You may be hilariously overpowered going into it, but your teammates must also deliver, as your score is pooled together at the end of each race. Upon completing the World Grand Prix, the presidential challenge begins. This final race is epic, taking place on one of the longest tracks in the game across 3 laps. Once you've beaten the president, the peaceful transfer of power happens and congratulations, you've beaten the game. Or the main story, anyway. Being the RPG that it is, there's so much more to do across your own road trip adventure.
Konbanwa, onaka ga suite imasen ka? Udon o tabemite kudasai. Fuji shiti ni kite oishii udon o tabemashou. Irashimase, okiak-sama.
Naturally, there's still a lot of racing to be done during the runtime of this not-quite racing game. There's an expansive number of tracks, ranging from simple ovals to Japanese temples to tropical getaways and snowy mountains. Several different terrain types and certain shortcuts warrant having to check and or change your paths before enlisting in these races. Otherwise, you could face the grim prospect of going into an off-road race equipped with your tarmac tyres, which would be very upsetting indeed. As far as the actual gameplay goes, it's functional. I love it, but I'm fully aware that it's years of nostalgic bias making me say that. ChoroQ Adventure is the second game in its series, known as ChoroQ HG 2 in Japan. ChoroQ Adventure's prequel, Penny Racing, is just a racing game, and honestly I struggle to get into that particular entry. One of the most noteworthy things about Road Trip Adventure that you'll pick up on very quickly whilst going through the different races is its physics engine. It's hilarious, and I'm not entirely sure that it's what the developers intended. Should you hit a corner, a curb, or even a single polygon the wrong way, there's a chance you'll be thrown into the air before gracefully floating back down, hopefully vaguely in the direction that you wanted to go. This also applies to the other races. It's fantastic to watch them fly. Something that both racing and role-playing games have in common is the need to upgrade your equipment. In Road Trip Adventure's case, this comes from buying better parts for your car, namely tyres, engines, chassis, steering, transmission and brakes. From there are also additional special parts which are a bit more fun, such as a propeller, a jetpack and even wings. I'll go into how you go about acquiring new parts a bit later in this review. You'll need to ensure that you do keep on top of acquiring the best equipment that you can for each race, because the AI does a pretty good job of providing a noteworthy challenge, and they will always show up with the best parts that they can. And don't forget to provide better parts for your teammates too. They will actually get better as you drive with them more and more, but without the right parts to begin with, well then, they can barely even compete. The tracks on offer are varied, colourful and fun. You've got several standard raceway types, namely Peach Circuit, the Oval and the Endurance Run. Then you've got some more interesting settings such as an old western town, an abandoned mining facility overrun by lava, and eventually even a raceway in the sky. Upon advancing further in the classes, you'll be able to try out different tracks which use the same themes too, adding to the variety of the game. As well as that, there's a few other bonus tracks, such as a highway loop, some drag tracks, and even a rally stage which takes you right the way around the main continent. So how do you unlock these tracks to begin with? In Road Trip Adventure, it's not as simple as winning a race and then selecting the subsequent stage from the main menu. No, in this game, upon returning to the menu after your first race, you'll know that there's an option to drive around town. Select this, and this is where the true game begins.
You there, gambling getting you down, football getting you down, heck, life getting you down? Then you should come on down to the San Polis Cake Parlor and let all your worries just melt away with the icing. Tell them Big Jeffrey sent you for the good stuff.
In Road Trip Adventure, you must drive from town to town across a large open world to discover and unlock said races. The world itself is totally and completely open. I don't think that there's a single invisible wall anywhere to be found. You can just always keep driving. Upon reaching the end of the map, much like many classic JRPG overworlds, you'll simply reappear on the other side. Much like the different racetracks I've already spoken about, the world itself is very diverse, featuring 9 different settlements across multiple biomes. It doesn't take long to see the cultures change dramatically either. For example, should you leave the starting area of Peach Town, a sleepy, European-style place, you'll come across a giant bridge. Crossing said bridge brings you to a completely different looking area, Fuji City. As the name implies, this settlement has a distinctly more Japanese feel, complete with a giant castle in the centre and populated by such folks as Hakusuke, Kiyokichi, Matsugoro, Princess Hahana and Brian the fireman. Indeed, it is not just the world itself, but also the people in it. The world of Road Trip Adventure is populated with hundreds of different cars, all functioning as proper NPCs with dialogue, behaviours and even side quests. Additionally, many of these characters will be the same ones that appear in the various races which you undertake. Some of these characters can also be recruited as your teammates. You're particularly likely to find certain cars on the racetrack if you happen to be competing in their city. As well as locating the numerous races that you'll need to win whilst playing through the main story of Road Trip Adventure, there are a few goods and services that you'll find each town has in common. First up, crucially, is the parts shop. Were this any other kind of JRPG, this would be the armor weapons store, where you turn up to trade in your hard-earned cash for some necessary upgrades. The further along you travel, the better and more powerful equipment on sale. Road Trip Adventure also offers some cosmetic customization. There are over 150 different kinds of vehicle bodies that you can buy, collect and equip on your journey. Fortunately, whatever body you choose doesn't affect your stats. so you can play around with these and find one that either looks cool or just simply looks the silliest. And believe me, there are a number of strong contenders. You can also give yourself and your teammates a makeover by nipping over to the local paint shop. I think it's particularly fun to colour coordinate yourself with your team. Finally, I'm going to talk about Q's Factory, which functions as the hub for every town in the game, and where you'll first be introduced to the world of Road Trip Adventure. Upon entering a Q's Factory, you'll be presented with several options, these being change your part, participate in the local race, save, quit, or go back outside. You'll want to make these your first port of call whenever your journey takes you to a new location. Road Trip Adventure also has fast travelling, and this is unlocked by visiting the various Q's factories. Did I also mention that this driving game will pay you simply for the act of driving? There are several different businesses in Road Trip Adventure, namely coffee, udon, cake, wool, and coconut, who will pay you simply for driving around with their sign on your head. You can also assign these sponsors to your teammates too, earning you quite a lot of money passively as the game goes on. You'll note that the environment changes several times over the course of this journey, encouraging you to experiment with and switch out your gear in order to ensure that you're able to navigate the world properly. This design philosophy is then extended to the racetracks featured in each biome, giving you a chance to experience the terrain type you'll be racing on before you even start. When you reach White Mountain, for example, you're going to want to ensure that you buy snow tyres as soon as you can. Exploration is very much encouraged in Road Trip Adventure, and the world is filled with secrets and bonus items that could be completely missed during the most casual of playthroughs. For example, you can only unlock the big tyres if you've bothered to collect enough of the many ChoroQ coins which litter the landscape. Additionally, the propeller and wing set come from finding Sidon, a character who apparently lives happily within some solitary underwater ruins. Shortly after running into Sidon, you'll encounter Papaya Island. Here lives Dr. Sandro, who'll give you the jet turbine, which is arguably the best upgrade in the whole game. All you must do is complete a very quick, easy side quest to make it happen. This side quest can be completed at literally any time, even right at the start of the game. All you have to do is drive off the cliffs east of Peachtown, keep on going, and eventually you'll reach Papaya Island, where you can do the side quest, equip the jet turbine, and then trivialize the rest of the game. There's a plethora of other secrets to be found, such as the curious light which haunts the San Polis desert at night, the 7 gems in a side quest given to you by the royalty, copyright and imagination-free Adventure Jones, as well as a whole town, a beautiful city in the sky which goes by Cloud Hill. Of course, the world itself is not just nice to look at, but also packed with things to do. I'll talk a little about that now, after this quick word from our next sponsor.
Hello, and croeso I White Mountain. Up here we don't have a whole lot to do with ourselves, but we do have this ski ramp. So what we thought is, what if we shave all our sheep and adorn ourselves in their clothing, and now we have lots and lots of woolly jumpers? White Mountain, where you can be a woolly jumper too.
A great musician once wrote that there's so much to do, so much to see, so what's wrong with taking the back streets? Which is a line that couldn't apply more to Road Trip Adventure if it tried. This is a game that requires you to take your time to really discover just how many things it has to do within its short but busy runtime. I'll start by talking about the minigames. Road Trip Adventure has around 20. These range from barrel dodging and rock climbing to full-on sporting events. For example, did you know that Road Trip Adventure was Rocket League before Rocket League was Rocket League? It's true. You and your 2 teammates can sign up for a football match in San Polis, partaking in what is perhaps the most iconic minigame of Road Trip Adventure. Then you can mosey on over to Mushroom Road if you fancy a round of golf or 2. If you've exhausted that, then why not take a trip up to White Mountain and have a go at some curling or ski jumping? Besides these, there are many side quests to be undertaken during Road Trip Adventure, with your progress throughout being very helpfully documented in your stamp book. 100 of these stamps are achieved through various tasks in each of the 9 towns. Some stamps are gained simply by driving into someone's home and saying the correct thing, whereas others are gained from collecting all 100 ChoroQ collectible coins or by finishing the construction of My City. I'm very excited to talk about my city now, finally, because it is my favourite part of the whole game. In between the towns of Fuji City and San Polis, there is a long, empty highway. About halfway down this highway, you'll notice another exit, and you'll find a big, empty plot of land only populated by one car, a realtor. They will ask you to spread the good word about my city, this up-and-coming new location that no one has found yet. You do this by driving around the various 8 other towns, finding cars that are a bit sad or dissatisfied, and telling them about my city so they can start their bold new life elsewhere. That's right, on top of everything else, this game has town building. The process of moving someone into my city is actually very simple. For example, Gonzo in Peach Town is a Q's Factory truck without a Q's Factory. He just sort of drives around the main town square area aimlessly, endlessly doing laps until you finally intercept him and tell him about my city, at which point he'll waddle on over there. The next time you show up, a brand new Q's Factory will be there waiting for you. There are around 20 cars like this to recruit throughout the land, usually in groups of 3 or 4 per settlement. I'd thoroughly recommend doing this because as you do and my city becomes more and more developed, it gradually becomes the most functional and largest town in the game. Some cars simply want to buy a house there, but many of them have more practical uses too, such as a body shop, a paint shop, a part shop, and a recycling centre where you can sell all your old gear. The shops have the biggest inventory in my city. Watching my city grow and develop is genuinely one of the most satisfying parts of the whole experience for me. It'll eventually become your hub and base of operations, even providing you with a garage when you sign up originally. The garage is awesome. You can customize its theme for a bit of interior design, and it even acts as the point of fast travel to all the different mini-games. Also, it gives you an email address, where you'll occasionally receive alerts from new inhabitants, thank you emails from cars you've done favours for, and even straight up fan mail. Road Trip Adventure is not a long game by any stretch of the imagination, but to this day, it's certainly still one of the densest, absolutely packed with so many different things to do, which, to be fair, are all really fun. As I've replayed this game now 2 or 3 times in the last few months for the purposes of this video and my own recreation, I really do struggle to think of anything else quite like it.
Noir de Coco.
Road Trip Adventure was truly a flash in the pan. A weird, wonderful, peculiar, perfect fusion of racer and role-playing game. Playing through this game made me realise just how different I approach video games now as an adult. As a child, this game took me months if not years to complete, driving around the open world endlessly, exploring every nook and cranny. Returning to it now, I was naturally much more focused on completing all the objectives that the game had given me, and I beat it within the space of a week. In a way, it kind of made me remorseful over something that I've clearly lost. This sense of wonderment and appreciation as a child that would lead me to just hang out in this game for hours on end. In today's fast-paced world with thousands of games at your fingertips and maps that are littered with hundreds of objective markers, the incentive to simply slow down and chill out with a game and take your time just doesn't really seem to be there anymore. Road Trip Adventure gives away its intentions in the title. It's not about the instant gratification of completing one thing after another. It's about the adventure itself, the journey, and I do think it's rather a personal one. I have seen the occasional criticism for this game online that sometimes the world can seem a little devoid of life, especially between towns and cities when you're driving alone down these highways, but this is your open road. This world is here for you to explore and discover. Something else about Road Trip Adventure that struck me recently was that the game demonstrates a great fondness for its players. Perhaps that sounds a bit silly, but it genuinely does want you to succeed. I'll admit I rolled my eyes and laughed when I was about to undertake a treasure hunt, and the quest giver immediately listed me every single collectible and where I'd be able to find them. Or when I went into one of the local pubs in each town and found out that they'd happily give you the exact location of each of the collectible ChoroQ coins in their respective area, trivializing the hunt and making it all too easy to acquire some of the best racing parts. But this is all because Roach Up Adventure respects your time and wants to see you win. Heck, as I said before, this game even sends you fan mail. How many other games out there repeatedly send you kind letters of encouragement as you progress through them? I can't think of many. Roach Up Adventure is a nostalgic flashback to a simpler time, a memory of childhood. It is the hot cocoa under a warm blanket by the fireplace of video games. The portal to a faraway place, a mystical land of no worries or anxieties where you can safely assume that everything is going to be okay. Or that's my take on it anyway. I don't know how the developers initially intended for the game to be perceived. I just know that I'm a sentimental old sod. I will leave you now with that revelation and simply ask that you join me next time when I'll be talking about a different game. I'll be talking about an actual racing game, an arcade classic which you could accurately describe as the Dark Souls of dating simulators.